What was your favorite thing about the 80s?
Oh my goodness, there were so many crazy, awesome things that happened in the 80s. I can't just pick one, but you know what? I do have a few ideas.
Hey, happy campers. Welcome to Camp Town Hall in the 80s.
Gotta get back in time. Do. Gotta get back in time. Name that band.
I don't know.
Huey Lewis and the News. Oh, from one of the most epic movies of the 80s, Back to the Future. Amazing.
Is that why you have your toy?
That's why I have my time machine. I have with me today for this episode my DeLorean time machine from Back to the Future. Not the actual one, obviously. But I have a collectible of one.
Your toy.
No, it's not a toy. And you know why it's not a toy?
Because you haven't taken it out of the box.
Because it's still in the box. That's right. It's not a toy. It's a collectible.
Is that a fancy word for toy?
So, we're back in time for this
We're
episode.
in the 80s.
Hey, by the way, if we do sound like we are back in time, it's because we're trying a new microphone configuration. So if it sounds weird, just pretend it's like we're calling you from the 80s and the technology is not that great. So, cool.
Cool.
All right. So last week you did a Camp Town Hall forum.
I did.
And you did it about the month of September, and we all agree now September's an awesome month.
So good.
I've had some friends of ours telling us that their birthdays are in fact in September, so that was interesting, and so they obviously love September. So we love September. What was the consensus among the people on the polls on the website? What did most people
They
think?
really like pumpkin spice.
Really? See, when
Yeah.
I voted, I said absolutely, we've gone too far.
I think you and I may be the only people, and a handful of others, that dislike pumpkin spice.
I was thinking, more recently, if I'm going to name this season a flavor, I would call it the salted caramel month, actually.
Ooh.
Now, I like salted caramel if I'm going to do that. So
That didn't exist in the 80s.
No, neither did pumpkin spice. So some things were better, for sure.
Let's go back in time.
We're going to be talking about that, but here's the thing. So you did the September forum, and I think salted caramel would have won if it existed in the 80s.
Right.
And we would have maybe never had pumpkin spice. That would have been great. But we're going to be not just doing a forum about the 80s, because it would be really cool, I'm sure, for me to just spout off a bunch of facts. But this isn't just education. This is edutainment at its best. So not only am I going to be spouting off facts.
You're going to sing.
Well, I might sing occasionally. There's some great songs in the 80s. You got to admit. Huey Lewis and the News, right? Right there.
Yeah.
But no. This is Camp Town Hall Forum /quiz. I'm going to have some facts, and I'm not going to tell you the answers. You're going to,
nuts.
because you were, 4 years old when the 80s began?
Yeah.
And so you were there for most of the 80s. You were there the whole time, but you were, I would say, aware of most things going on in the universe, or at least in your world, during most of the 80s. And so a lot of the things you'll probably remember or you'll have heard. But I'm gonna quiz you on this, and you who are listening, you can take this quiz too and see how well you do.
Can I phone a friend? Can I phone them?
No, you can't phone or text. Well, they're not going to be able to answer it because we don't have a time machine, because this airs at a different day than the day we're recording it.
Bummer. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
So anyway, speaking of today, we're recording this on a friend of mine's birthday who actually happens to be a Patreon patron of ours. His name is Adam. He goes by Goose.
What's up, Goose?
What's up, Goose? This is your official shout out for joining us on Patreon, becoming a patron. Thank you so much for your patronage, and
Happy
birthday! And of course, you know what? Let's do that again, because today's his birthday. He won't hear it till afterwards, so we'll do the belated thing. So,
okay.
Happy belated birthday! There we go.
So cool.
But he'll know we didn't forget.
That's right. He's so cool.
Anyway, thank you for sponsoring us and being a patron. And if you're listening and you're like, hey, how can I become a patron? You go visit our website, camptownmedia.com, and click on the button there, and it actually shows you how you can become a patron and help us keep this show going.
Woo! All right, I'm ready for the quiz.
You ready for the quiz? I'm not. I got to pull it up.
I've studied.
All right, question number 1. I'm going to break it in easy, okay? The 80s began on January 1st, 1980. Big surprise there, right?
Dun, dun,
When did it end?
Well, that would be December 31st, 1989 at midnight.
That's true. The very next second, it was
90.
the 90s. So there you go. That wasn't so hard.
All right, quiz is over.
No,
feeling
no,
good
no,
about
no,
it.
no, 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 no. Now, here we go. All right, the next one is we're gonna do a lot of pop culture things because I figured that would be the easiest for you to get. Probably a lot of
Okay.
people would get it, and plus it's edutaining. And so the first question is definitely a pop cultural milestone in television, and it would have been in cable television. Just to give you a hint. So this network, this cable television network, began broadcasting on August 1st, 1981. I can give you one hint.
Okay.
At one time, not anymore, at one time it was known for playing music videos.
Oh, MTV.
That's correct. MTV, which nowadays I don't even know if they play music videos anymore, but MTV used to exclusively just play music videos, and it started broadcasting in 1981. Here's the next question though. What was the first music video it played on air?
Oh! It was that video killed the radio star.
That's right. Come on, sing it.
The video killed the radio star.
Video killed the radio star. I told you there might be some singing. Okay, great. But who sang that song?
The band that did that
Video
song.
killed the radio star by the band that played that song. The Buggles was actually the name. The Buggles.
I'm sorry, the Buggles?
The Buggles were the name of the band. Now, here's one thing, a fun fact about the 80s. It is riddled with one-hit wonders. I mean, there are so many people, there's so many songs you'll hear, and you're like, oh yeah, that was that one band. And you can't remember the band, you just remember the song because they were like a one-hit wonder. And I'm thinking the Buggles might have been among those.
All right. Let's keep going. I'm doing really well.
All right. Are you ready? Now this is going to be a little more challenging.
Oh, nuts.
Also have to do with cable TV. So, on June 1st of 1980, Ted Turner launched the first 24-hour news network. What network was that?
Ted Turner. Ted Turner was CNN?
Yes, you are correct.
Ah, I'm doing so well.
All right, let's. This is my favorite topic, so I'm going to spend a little time on it. Sorry. Are you ready?
I don't even know.
So in the 80s, personal computing made tremendous strides during this decade, full of like amazing technological advancements, particularly the personal computer. The first personal computer was released in August of 1981 by which major computer company?
IBM.
Yes, IBM. What was their nickname?
Big Brother.
No. No, that was different. Big Blue. Big Blue. That's interesting you call it Big Brother because we're going to get that in a moment. Also, the Commodore 64 and the Apple soon followed in creating basically a huge tech race between Big Blue and Apple. Commodore 64, I don't think they didn't go very far.
Didn't do anything.
There was no Commodore 65.
Fizzled right out.
There was no. But in Apple, in January of 1984, during the Super Bowl, Apple revealed its first successful breakthrough in personal computing that revolutionized the industry. What was it called?
The computer that revolutionized the industry? Nailed it!
We have one in our home.
From the 80s?
No. I did at one time.
The Apple
Macintosh. The Apple Macintosh, or now as we call them,
Macs.
the Macs. Yeah, the very first Apple Macintosh was released in 1984. And of course, during the Super Bowl, the commercial portrayed IBM as kind of a Big Brother type entity. So it's interesting you call it Big Brother because that's how Apple played it off too with IBM. And so at that point, they kind of declared war on IBM. There's kind of already things going on.
Dude, I'm so smart. I didn't even know it.
Yeah, Big Brother.
Come on.
Big Blue was portrayed as Big Brother. Anyway, so from that point on, computers just kept, growing and getting faster and better. But some of the things that were really unique about the Macintosh computer over any other personal computer before its time, what are some of those things you think it had that was different?
It had a Apple logo, which would be different.
They all had Apple logos.
It was
Think in terms
boxy.
of things we use even today with our computers. You used one today. Now, at that point,
mouse?
a mouse. The mouse was introduced with. Now, actually, there was another computer that Apple tried to introduce before that called Lisa, which had a mouse. Wasn't that great. but the most successful launch was the Macintosh computer. And yes, it did have a mouse. It also was one of the first computers to have a graphical user interface, also
I
known
just
as
totally zoned out right there.
GUI.
Hey,
Okay, but you've heard the
what?
term Windows, right?
Yeah, I know what windows are.
Okay.
I'm looking out one right now. There's a window in my room.
Yeah,
Huh?
your computer has them too. So your computer has what are called Windows, whether that's obviously Windows is also an operating system, but basically what you see is what you get. Kind of, you're looking at a screen, you're moving a mouse around, you're clicking on things. That was basically spearheaded by Apple with the Macintosh computer. There you go.
Will someone
Things we still use
get
today.
them a cookie? Because
They
something.
got plenty of cookies. They got lots of cookies and lots of money from that. But fun fact, all right, Apple didn't own those technologies first. Can you guess who did?
I think you're underestimating the fun in your fun fact.
All right, I'll give you a hint. They are not known for computers, but known more for photocopying. Xerox. They owned the rights and the patents to the mouse and the graphical user interface. But basically, the big wigs with Xerox said, no, the future's in photocopying. And so they gave the rights to Steve Jobs, who used it. Yep. Whoops, Xerox. How about this one? If you're listening to your podcast right now, you listeners are listening to your podcast on a smartphone, this one's for you. And Kim, you still have to answer. The first cellular network launched in America in October of 1983. So because of 1980s, we not only have personal computing, but we also have cellular technology that we are still using today. That's pretty interesting. Come on.
Okay.
I didn't even quiz you on that. But what was the first major manufacturer of cellular telephones in the 80s?
The first manufacturer. So who made the first cell phone?
The first mass-produced cell phones for consumers.
Motorola.
You are correct. Do you remember what it looked like? What people called it?
It looked like a shoe. It was like a brick phone. It
The
looked like
brick phone is what people call it. It was the Dynatac 8000X.
It looked like a dinosaur. And
Also known as the brick phone. But what did the youth of the day call it? What did the youths call it that back in the day? Back in my day, when I was in the 80s, man, I sound like an old
Grandpa,
man.
I think they called it their
You're
brick
peeking.
phone.
You're peeking.
I'm not.
Think Saved by the Bell.
I wish I was Saved by the Bell.
Zach Morris phone. Like, so the kids in that
They called
day,
it a Zach
they
Morris
called
phone?
it the Zach Morris phone, yeah. Because in the TV show, he walked around, apparently he had one.
Dude, no one looked cool walking around that thing. It was like a brick in your pocket. Pardon me while I pull up my antenna to take this call. People were dorks in the 80s.
People were awesome in the 80s. All right. So we've talked about Saved by the Bell, which is probably the last one we talk about, but we are going to talk about more pop culture stuff because I think
I'm doing so well.
You're going to do better with pop culture than you did with tech.
So the computer talk is over.
We're done with the computer talk. All right.
Okay. I'm ready.
Top songs of the 80s.
Oof.
Now this floored me because I thought I knew the 80s, but I guess, as well, I'm only a few months older than you. So a lot of these songs were more in the earlier 80s. I do remember them, but I don't remember liking them really ever.
Oh, bother.
But what was the number one song, according to Billboard.com, of the entire 80s, of that decade? What was the number one song?
Of the decade?
Of the decade!
I don't know, by Bananarama.
No. It was Let's Get Physical by Olivia Newton-John. Do you remember that one?
Gross.
The aerobics video.
Gross. That song represented the entire decade?
No. It just happened to have the biggest sales. I mean, like, if you thought about it, aerobics were also getting big in the 80s, and that's the song
my
they
mom did aerobics.
That's the song that they played
We
to
had
get
to
you
watch Jane Fonda and
Jane Fonda's
her
workout.
leg lifts. Gross.
Well, she had to do something while her husband was making CNN, right?
That's true.
All right. Okay,
People
so
need hobbies.
Number two song of the 80s. You're not going to get it.
Let's Eat Junk Food by...
Nope.
I don't know.
By Weird Al?
I was going to say, if it's Let's Get Physical, I'm going with the exact opposite.
No. Endless Love by Diana Ross and Lionel Richie.
Gross.
I know. My endless love. You're supposed to join me on that one. That's a duet.
Some of those songs just make me want to...
Number three, are you ready? Are you ready for number three? Probably not.
No. Are they better than 1 and 2?
No, this one's worse, but I do remember it. I remember this one a lot. In fact, it played a lot in like the supermarkets. You'd hear this one a lot. And I worked in a supermarket as a teenager, so I heard it a lot.
All right. Give me a hint.
Kim Carnes is the artist. Hey, she shares your first name. Come on, Kim.
Could you be more helpful?
It's about a woman's ocular organs.
I'm leering at you creepily.
No, Betty Davis eyes. Yeah, see songs I barely remember hearing, but yeah, Betty. You remember Betty Davis eyes? I'm not even gonna sing it. It sounds creepy when you hear it.
Did she have that really low voice that sounded like she smoked too much?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
Kim Carnes.
it.
Betty Davis eyes. All right, so we'll end with that.
These
okay.
are not good songs.
Okay, but these are okay. How about this? Who had the most hits of the '80s?
Olivia Newton-John.
No. She only had that one. That was it for her, and that was enough.
Oh, Michael Jackson.
You were close. He had actually. He didn't. I mean, he was popular throughout multiple decades. So, but in the '80s, he only had like 3 number ones. But you were right with the Michael part. But that's his last name.
George Michael had the most hits in the '80s.
That's right. He had so
Wham?
he was one of the. Well, that was the thing. He had 2 number 1 singles as a solo artist, 4 with Wham, and then he did it. I don't even remember that he did a duet with Aretha Franklin.
What?
I know.
I think I slept through the '80s. I was still having nap time when these songs
I was
were
having
popular.
that. Yeah. All right. Now you'll get this one. I know you'll get this. What was the number 1 music video of the '80s?
Thriller.
There you go. Thriller. So you got Michael Jackson's
cool.
Thriller, which aired in what year? Do you know what year?
1980 something.
1983. I actually remember seeing it on, guess what channel?
MTV.
MTV. I saw Thriller on MTV. Now, here's the funny thing about Thriller. Though the song itself was only 6 minutes long, the video, which is long, the video was a whopping 13 minutes long, and it played much like a kind of a mini horror movie.
Well, they did that whole story where he's with the girl in the graveyard, which is a terrible place to take a date.
Well, they started out in the theater, then she got mad at him, then they started walking, and then he turned into a zombie, and it was great.
It's good that she left him in the theater then, because
That's
obviously she knows how to pick him.
One of my favorite music videos of all time, probably. What iconic horror movie actor's voice narrates an eerie poem at the end of the song?
Oh, it's Vince something, but all I can think of is Vince Vaughn, and that's so not right. It's Vincent Price! Vincent Price!
Very
Vincent
good.
Price!
Yes, Vincent Price. Very good. Now we're talking about movies. Now, you love movies, right?
Yeah, but I don't like 80s movies.
Oh, 80s movies were great. And so, like...
80s movies were terrible.
Come on, like, anything that was written or directed by John Hughes, everybody's like, let's watch it! It's gonna be great! Of course, like I said in our... another podcast, I talked about Ferris Bueller. Oh, the Back to School one. I talked about Ferris Bueller. It was probably one of my favorite Back to School.
It's the only John Hughes movie I liked.
You didn't like Breakfast Club or Pretty in Pink?
I've never seen Breakfast Club.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, those will not appear on this quiz, so you don't have to worry about
Great.
those. But now I feel like watching Ferris Bueller.
All right. Hit me with the
and
questions.
you know what's amazing, though? Neither is any of the Back to the Futures. And I'm really bummed that they were not among the top 5.
I didn't love those either.
I love Back to the Future. All right. So what was the number 1, and this is based on box office earnings, okay, was the number 1 movie of the 80s?
It's got to be E.T.
It is.
I went to the
peaked, didn't you?
theaters.
You
No,
peaked.
because that's the only movie that everyone talked about for 10 years is the creepy alien with the bike
Horrible
and the Reese's
movie.
Pieces.
Horrible movie. I watched it again with Connor.
Why?
Because I told Connor, this is, a bit of Americana. And this is a bit of, if you're going to be involved in any kind of entertainment, you need to know about E.T. And it was still not great. I mean, it was a little better than I recalled it being. There's some
I saw
really,
it in the theaters, and it scared me.
Yeah, with the whole white tunnel and the hazmat stuff. Yeah. I thought it was going to be like this little cute Muppet type thing. And I go in, and these guys in the hazmat suits are, shining light in Elliot's eyes and all that. Yeah, it was definitely scary for a kid, I would say. Even though there was a lot of kid things going on and Reese's Pieces, which are always kid-friendly. Yeah, that did get scary. I remember seeing that one in the theater when we came for vacation in Branson. Because remember I told you we used to vacation in Branson. So after seeing Falling Rocks, Missouri, we went and saw E.T. apparently.
You're so cool.
I know, right? If you're wondering what Falling Rocks, Missouri is, you got to check out our road trip episode. So check that one out. All right, number 2.
I'm ready.
What was the number 2 movie?
I thought you were just going to tell me.
All right, I'll tell you the rest of them. Number 2 was Return of the Jedi, which, yes, definitely earned that place. I would say, can
All
you
right.
Number 3 was Empire Strikes Back, which had the biggest plot twist in the 80s. I mean, if you think about it, and this was back in the day before like Twitter and anything could spoil it. Like we did not know that Darth Vader was Luke's father. Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen Empire Strikes Back, well, you need to by now.
I say, if you haven't seen it, where have you been?
But yeah, so like Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. That one you didn't find out until you got in the movies, and you were just like blown away, unless you had these friends that were annoying and would tell you, after they saw it. Okay. I remember one of my earliest memories of the 80s, actually. It was probably it was the very early 80s. Could have even been late 70s. But whenever my parents told me that they had gone to see Star Wars and they didn't take me, and I was furious. And they're like, no, we had to make sure it was kid appropriate. And so they took me the next week.
I would have loved to have seen little Caleb Fury.
I was just like, come on, you guys went to see Star Wars. You know how bad I want to see it.
Oh, so it was little Caleb whining, actually.
Oh, yes, he was whining. It was Star Wars, which I know is in the 70s when it first came out. But I think they re-released it in 1980 or something. I just remember going and seeing it. And I remember... This was my first of many of these experiences in movie theaters. I remember it being close to the end, and it's the Death Star X-Wing fighter scene, and I had to go to the bathroom so bad, but I was not going to give it up.
Did you piddle in your seat?
No, I was able to hold it. I managed to hold it until until it was over, and I got to go to the bathroom. But then I realized that movie theaters are bad on bladders, and I still have that issue. Like, I always make sure when I go to the movie theater, I'll go sometimes twice before the movie starts. I'll go while we're waiting, then when the trailers are going, I'm like, I'm going to try again, just in case.
So we've now reached the TMI portion of this podcast.
Hey, this is a little bit of Caleb you may not want to know, but I just want to make sure I can sit through the whole movie without having to go. But they have apps now. There's actually apps out there, and one of them's called RunPee, which is a funny name. But there's apps out there that actually tell you in a movie when the best time to go run to the bathroom is. So now what a day and age we live in. We didn't have that in the 80s.
No,
we just had to sit there and let our bladders explode, or miss out. But yeah, now it'll tell you the best time, and it tells you what you missed during that time.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So what else you got?
All right, so Empire Strikes Back was number 3. Number 4, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Surprisingly.
Okay.
It was in 1989 when it got it, and then also in '89, Batman was number 5. So that one.
The Michael Keaton Batman.
Yeah. So that was technically in the '80s.
I liked that one.
That was cool, and that was like the first experience you got with the Joker. That was just like, whew, that's crazy. Jack Nicholson's Joker. So there you go.
All right.
In case you're wondering where I got all this information, this is based off of 8089.com, and that's where I went and found 8089.com.
That was a good forum.
Oh, no, we're not done.
Oh, I was hoping
we just
the quiz
finished
was
moving.
over.
Now it's TV time. TV time. What is your favorite memory of like television in the 80s? What is it you remember?
That I was the remote. Like, if my parents wanted to watch different channels, I'm the one that had to sit in front of the TV and turn the dial.
Back in my day, we had to walk all the way to the TV to change the channel.
And if it was too loud, I had to turn the dial until it was the volume that they appreciated.
Consider yourself blessed. I'm sorry.
That was
I was the antenna turner.
Yeah.
We had an outside aerial antenna, and then if we wanted to change the channel, I had to go outside and turn the giant antenna to where we would be able to get the best reception for whatever channel we want to watch. So you were the remote. I was like the antenna turner, not the Tina Turner. Also big in the 80s too, but I was antenna turner. Different.
Nice.
Different turner. All right.
Okay.
This one's for you. You're going to love this one. This is going to be your question. I guarantee you'll get it right. What TV mystery show, you can probably answer it right there, debuted in 1984 and continued until 1996 when its very own network, ready for it to end, changed its time slot, pitting it against Friends.
84 to 96?
Yes.
Wow.
It was a TV mystery show. That should clue you in.
All right. Well, was it one of those like true crime shows?
No, it was It was one of your favorite TV mystery shows ever. Happened in Cabot Cove.
Oh, Murder, She Wrote. Come on, man.
Murder, She Wrote.
It went to 96?
Yes. Yeah. So I looked this up. According to mentalitch.com, in a move that seemed to thumb their nose at NBC. So this is whenever it was getting ready to be canceled because it was pitted against Friends. I don't know, maybe you'll remember this one. One episode in the last season of Murder, She Wrote was called Murder Among Friends, in which a show called Buds starred 6 20-somethings that hung out together at a coffee shop. Do you remember that episode?
I do not, but now I want to go find
You gotta
it.
go out and watch Murder Among Friends. Isn't that crazy that
That's so
they did
funny.
kind of a shout out against Friends?
They threw Friends some shade. That's
Yes. That's all right. All right. So the top TV shows of the 80s. This is according to Nielsen ratings. All right.
Okay.
So the top prime time drama. You got to get to this one. Prime time. Some people call them prime time soap operas.
They had all the weird ones like Dynasty and Dallas and Falcon Crest.
That's right. They don't do that anymore. Now it's more like reality shows.
My parents watched them.
So what
and
was the number one?
I don't know. I hated them all.
But come on, which one do you think? When you think 80s, which one?
Dallas, probably, because
Yes.
there was the Who Killed
And
J.R.
you got to
buzz.
go, yeah, the whole Who Killed J.R. buzz. But you got to go visit the house.
I
right?
got to see the house from the end of the driveway.
Oh,
'Cause
okay.
we weren't able to go.
You were not a Ewing or whatever they were.
No.
is that
I
the
was
one?
not
Yeah,
viewing either.
Yeah. You were not what?
I was not viewing.
Oh, you were not viewing or Ewing. Wow.
I'm a poet.
Getting punny all up in here. All right. Number one sitcom of the 80s. And actually, it was the number one TV show, according to Nielsen ratings. You'll probably kick yourself whenever.
MASH wasn't a sitcom, right?
No, it would not have been considered a sitcom.
It was funny, though.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I'll give you a hint. Your stepdad used to dance like a character.
Oh, Cosby.
Cosby Show, yes. It had the highest Nielsen rating of the 80s in general. Like of all the TV shows,
That's
it had the
right.
highest. All right, now you kind of said something. You'll probably get this right. What was the most watched single TV episode that aired in the 80s?
That would be the last episode of MASH.
That's right. The last episode of MASH actually had the most watch of any TV, like by far. In fact, any other thing in like the top 20 or whatever were Super Bowls. So like in history, it was like I looked it up and it was like Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, MASH, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, and so MASH had 105,970,000 viewers. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
That many people watching the last episode of MASH, which I don't know if I've ever seen it. I've seen lots of MASH.
I've seen it.
I don't know if I've seen it. It was called Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen.
Huh.
There you go.
Good job.
All right, and so now that we're on TV, we talked about this a little bit, but it was also the era of commercial deregulation. So there were no regulations on, what TV commercials you could put during what time slots and things like that. And so lots of cartoons were also basically one long commercial where they would show the cartoon for Transformers, let's say, and then they would have commercials for
With the kids playing with the toys.
yeah, and so that was. But
Okay.
I'm gonna do a little quiz. I'm gonna do catchphrases from popular '80s cartoons.
Oh, I'm going to so fail this.
You're gonna do great. All right, more than meets the eye. I just mentioned them. More than meets the eye.
G.I. Joe?
Transformers. I just mentioned Transformers.
Transformers did not say more than meets the eye.
Yes. Yes,
Really?
it was part of their song. More than meets the eye. Robots in disguise. You just wanted to hear me sing it, didn't you?
A little bit.
Knowing is half the battle.
And not knowing this question is terrible. I don't know.
That's G.I. Joe. Knowing is half the battle. At the end, they would have these little like PSAs, and so they would like tell these kids, it's not good to be a bully, or it's not good to make fun of people. And then they're like, thanks, now I know. And they're like, knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe. Okay. You're 0 for 2. You'll get this one. You will get this one. If you do not get this one, I will just end the podcast right now. Because I guarantee you'll get it. I'm not worried.
Yeah, no pressure.
By the power of Grayskull.
Oh, that's He-Man.
There you go. I knew you'd get this one.
That's He-Man.
We were in no danger. All right, how about this one? This one actually started in the 80s. Nope.
Ooh.
Nope.
That's Homer. Homer Simpson. Homer Simpson.
The Simpsons, the longest running cartoon in TV history. Yes.
Homer Simpson.
Started in the 80s. So there you go. All right, cowabunga, dude.
Let's go, Teenage Mutant Ninja
There you go.
Turtles.
Okay, Dave. You know this one is.
I don't.
You don't have to throw me under the bus. Okay, Dave.
Who said okay?
Okay, Dave. I wanted to change my name.
Oh, that was the Chipmunks?
Alvin and the Chipmunks. They always said, okay, Dave.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Caleb.
How about this one? La, 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 la.
La 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 la. That was the Smurfs.
All right. All right. Something, something, ho!
Could you repeat the something something?
Nope, because that gives away the title of the cartoon.
Something. Ah.
Thundercats. Thundercats, ho!
Didn't know that.
All right. One more, and you'll love it and hate it. You'll get it right, but you'll hate it.
Okay.
Go, go, Gadget! Whatever.
It's Inspector Gadget. Blech.
All right. And since there was, a lot of, like I said, deregulation, there wasn't a lot of laws concerning advertising to children, and so which is why my generation apparently loves their toys. But there were a lot of great toys that came out in the 80s. I'm going to see if you remember.
Are they toys now, or are they collectibles?
This first one is collectible, probably the number one toy, and it was more, they did market towards boys occasionally, but mostly girls. What was the number one toy that was marketed in the 80s? And it is definitely collectible nowadays.
Action figure.
Nope. Because girls love action figures.
I do enjoy a good action figure. Nintendo?
Because boys hate Nintendo.
Oh, this is a girl toy?
This was marketed more towards girls. Boys occasionally they would, but this is marketed more towards.
Oh.
Sorry, I guess I didn't say that clearly. This toy was
girl toy.
More for girls.
Oh, Cabbage Patch Kids.
Cabbage Patch dolls. Yes, they were the number one, and there were riots and stuff.
My Nana had to get one flown in from somewhere so I could get one for Christmas.
Okay, here's the question though: what collector card series spoofed the Cabbage Patch Kids?
Garbage Pail Kids, and they were gross.
I collected them. I loved my Garbage Pail Kids.
They were gross.
They were awesome. All right, some other. I looked this up on a website. I can't remember the name of the website now. Oh yeah, I have it written down here. Listchallenges.com. And I disagree with this website because it listed Cabbage Patch as number 3, Care Bears as number 2.
All right.
Which you would probably agree with. But number 3, never even heard of it. Fluppy Dogs.
I've heard of Pound Puppies.
These were Fluppy Dogs. I don't remember this. I had to look it up. In 1986. On ABC, Disney released a cartoon called Fluppy Dogs, and apparently these were the merch for the. I don't remember. It did not last very long. It did not make it through a season, I don't think. So
but it was the number one toy?
No, I said it was the number 3. I disagree. So I started looking at my own and thinking, when were some great toys coming out? When did some great toys come out? And so I decided to look up just a few of the ones I remember those. Do you remember the Rubik's Cube?
Yes. I used to take the stickers off my Rubik's Cube
Cheater.
So I could solve it.
I found a different way. I used to find a way to break it apart without breaking it, but you could just disassemble it and then put it back together.
Yeah, we did that too.
Yeah, so that was the less, because the stickers, once you peel them off, they were pretty toast after that. It was actually technically invented in 1974, but it wasn't really released as a toy. It wasn't really marketed as a toy until 1980.
Let's go.
Do you remember Teddy Ruxpin?
Yes, and it was creepy.
Teddy Ruxpin was creepy. I never had one, but they always played him in Walmart. They always had him hooked up.
They walked and...
No, they didn't walk. They just
I thought
sat
he
there.
slid on something and had little weird robotic arms and eyes that blinked.
He might have had arms. He had eyes that blinked and a mouth that talked.
Creepy.
And you put a cassette in his back, like he had a little tape player basically, and he would play a story, and then his mouth would move and everything according to whatever's playing. My friends would take hair bands like Striper and all that. They would put their tapes inside Teddy Ruxpin and watch their Teddy Ruxpin sing Striper, which was really funny.
I can imagine these little kids playing with their Teddy Ruxpin and listening to hair bands.
It'd be awesome. Men had some great hair in the 80s. I'm going to tell you, I had the mullet.
Dear.
Striper had perms. It was great. It was awesome. But anyway, yeah, I remember. And then, of course, when Teddy Ruxpin started dying, he sounded like some possessed doll demon thing. It was crazy because the batteries would start going dead, and he'd get really deep and stuff. Anyway, funny thing. All right, and of course, my favorite toy that came out / entertainment device that came out in the 80s came out in 1985. Can you guess what it is? The Nintendo Entertainment System. That's right. It came out in 1985, released with Super Mario Brothers. It actually came with a game, which is awesome because you didn't have to buy a game.
Wait, didn't it come with Duck Hunt too?
If you got the special one that had the laser gun,
we had the special one.
We didn't. It came with Mario / Duck Hunt, and then it had the dog.
I would shoot guns I'd shoot ducks after school and felt super cool about it.
I would always try to shoot the dog when he'd laugh at me. But you never can shoot the dog when he laughs at you.
The dog didn't laugh at me because I shot all the ducks.
Of course. Of course. Would you stand an inch away from the TV?
Sometimes.
Anyway, so those are some amazing things. Now, there are a ton of great toys and things that came out in the 80s. 80s was an era of awesome awesome toys coming out, like Transformers and all that. Star Wars action figures, of course. were
I
a
knew
big
that
thing.
was coming.
I know. All right, so now let's get into some big time world events. Which, a lot of the fun things happen, but there's some crazy things that happen in the world in the 80s. All right, and so I'm going to ask a few of them, then some of them I'm just going to run through. The president who presided over most of the decade of the 80s.
Ronald Reagan.
All right, he was president for like pretty much 8 years in the 80s. So 8 of the 10 years of the 80s, he was president. So that was Ronald Reagan. All right, how about this one? In 1989, November of 1989, this long-lasting structure fell, but it was a good thing.
The Berlin Wall.
The Berlin Wall fell, yeah, that's right. It also started the fall of communism in Europe, culminating with the Soviet Union in December of 1991. So Soviet Union didn't fall in the 80s, but it started. The snowball started rolling in the 80s. Speaking of the Soviet Union, in April 26th of 1986, a meltdown happens. Chernobyl, that's right. And so there's a mass evacuation of the entire town, and it's still a ghost town today.
I'm so stoked that I know these.
You're so smart. See, I should have started with the news.
I was
done the news and then,
little skeptical.
Here's the thing about 1986. It was a big year in history. There's a lot of things that happened in 86. Chernobyl happened in January 28th of 1986. There was something that happened in our nation. Do you remember what happened then in January of 1986? A lot of schools were impacted because of this, because they were watching and didn't realize it was going to happen.
It was the space shuttle. Challenger shuttle exploded on live television, and lots of schools were watching it. Because there was a teacher.
Our school didn't, but there was a school in there.
I don't remember
Christy
if we
McCullough. And
did or not.
Ours didn't watch it, but there were a lot of schools that were watching it that day, and then it exploded on live television. Crazy fact, though, my brother the night before had a dream that it exploded.
No way.
There you go.
That is crazy.
That is crazy to think about. But yeah, he apparently dreamt it was going to happen, which is just weird to think about.
That is weird.
All right. 1986. Also, had the Challenger explosion. But here's one fact for you that I was super excited to read. February 3rd of 1986. What major studio is founded by Edwin Catmull and Alvy Ray Smith? Probably never heard of these people.
Oof.
All right, I'll give you another hit.
Major studio?
Major animation studio.
Oh.
Major computer animation studio.
Pixar?
Pixar started in 1986. Can you believe that?
Huh.
There you go. All right, let's see. Oprah Winfrey's show debuts in 1986.
And you get a car. And you get a car.
Or you get a comet, because Halley's Comet also appeared in 1986, which doesn't appear for every 70 years. So 1986, huge. And then Hands Across America happened in 1986.
Is that the We Are the World song that all the superstars...
There was a lot of big fundraisers. And
Farm Aid.
Farm Aid was there, Live Aid, USA for Africa. All those things were going on in the 80s. There's a big thing. But Hands Across America was in 1986.
What was Hands Across America?
It was basically I guess you could call it technically the largest or maybe the longest charity event in history.
Is it legit where people held hands across
Yes,
America?
people, basically they donated $10 to be able to participate, and the goal was to have people hold hands all the way across the United States. Yeah.
Did it work?
I don't know if it ever actually, if they made a complete link, but 6.5 million people participated in it.
Wow.
Yeah. And then also in 1986, the Soviet Union launches its Mir space station, which,
is that Sputnik or with the dog or the chimp or whatever?
No, not at all. Those were in the 70s and 60s. And
yeah, I knew that.
Mir space station,
I wanted to see if
which
you
just
really...
in recent history, I can't remember how long ago it was, but it was within the last 15, 20 years that it finally came down. Maybe even less.
I was testing you.
You were testing. So we saw amazing things happen in the 80s. There's some crazy things. There's some great things. Again, hairstyles were amazing in the 80s.
Dude.
Music was amazing in the 80s. The 80s had it all.
Dude, when I was a kid, we would have girls that would backbend. Like, the air dryers in the bathrooms.
The little push-button hand dryers?
Yeah, they would backbend so they could hairspray their hair upside down and the hair dryer would blow it. That was 80s hair at my school.
Yep, my cousin did that.
Straight up.
He sure did.
Yikes.
My cousin would do the hairband, like he was into like the hairbands and all
Did
that.
he perm his hair? Or did
So
he have
he would hold his hair upside down. No, he would tease it. So he'd hold his hair upside down and hairspray and blow dry while holding it upside down, and he'd have this giant standing up mound of hair.
I love you, Mom. If you're listening to this, I love you. But my mom used to tease her hair and like torment it almost.
It was more torture than teasing.
Like,
right?
I felt bad for her hair because it looked so terrible to her hair follicles. Like, she'd back comb it, and I just...
That was like one of the things that happened a lot in the 80s was like the big hair. Like, I remember like women's hair matched their sleeves a lot of times. They'd have the big puffy hair and then big puffy sleeves at the same time. And so it was just like...
I didn't understand shoulder pads.
Shoulder pads and puffy sleeves.
Like, everyone wants to look like a linebacker. Why not?
Yeah. I could go for some shoulder pads.
That's cool.
Yeah, so the 80s were an amazing era. Amazing is a general enough word where you can say it was amazingly bad or it was amazingly great. I loved being a child of the 80s because first of all, I loved computers and watching all that technology evolve during the 80s. And I loved the cartoons, which we got a whole podcast dedicated to that. But so the 80s were a great era.
Now, but see, the 80s, from my recollection, I was not a fan of all the rewinding that we had to do. Like, everything, you had to rewind it. So, if you wanted to
everything was tapes, basically.
To the beginning of a tape or watch a movie again, you had to wait 45 minutes for the thing to rewind.
But think about it, like our generation, maybe the last generation, to be able to put together what a cassette tape and a pencil have to do with each other. I mean, did you ever do that? You'd stick the pencil in the little gear of the cassette and you'd rewind it that way.
Yes.
Or if your tape player ate your tape, then you'd have to get the pencil out and rewind it. Oh my goodness.
I did have a cool bike in the 80s, though.
Did you?
I had a super cool banana seat bike with the tassels on the handlebars. And it was like Phoebe's bike from Friends when Ross got her that bike.
Mm-hmm.
It was...
Did it have a bell on it?
Oh, no, actually. I thought
no, it didn't.
No, that was kind of a downer. But it was purple. It was super cool.
I had a BMX, so I was like...
I graduated to a BMX.
I love the BMX. Wow, all this talk about the 80s, I do feel like we hopped into the DeLorean and stepped back in time. Speaking of time, we are way over our time, and so it's time to say goodbye. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a lot of fun, and again, like I mentioned earlier, if you want to support us on Patreon, you can do that. One more shout out to Goose. Thanks for supporting us.
Thank you.
On Patreon. And if you haven't yet, check out some of our other podcasts because we refer to a lot of them in this one. And so you may want to see what the September one's about or what the road trip one's about or cartoons. They're all really good. Lots of fun. And we'd love it if you could check us out on social media. Any of our social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It's all at Camptown Media. Give us a shout out, like and share so that we can get the word out because we want more people to hear our crazy, awesome lives and memories of the 80s.
Share it with a friend.
Our trip down memory lane.
Share it with 10 friends.
You know what I don't think we're going to do? I don't think we're going to do a trip down memory lane for the 90s. I just don't think it's,
Yeah.
What was there? It was all right. It was flannel.
Flannel and grunge.
And all the hair bands cut their hair.
I know. I did enjoy that.
What was that? I was like, Van Halen all had short hair. What was up with that?
Much better. It was a big improvement.
And they weren't wearing tight pants anymore. Probably because they didn't fit into them as well.
Big improvement.
But yeah, all the hair got cut in the 90s. But anyway, check it out. I don't think we're gonna do a 90s episode.
No, probably not.
But we got some fun ones coming up this month and next. We're really excited to share with you guys some of the great things happening.
And don't forget to check out our website. It's camptownmedia.com. We have some blogs and funny pictures of Waddles the pig, and you get a glimpse into our life. Thanks for listening to Camptown Hall. We cannot...
The quiz forum of the 80s.
I was going to say, you're going to sing again, aren't you?
No, I'm done singing. It's good.
All right. See ya.
Yeah, we're going to redo that ending. We're going to do that ending again. Peace. All right. No. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Cowabunga, dude!